If you were to have told me that I would be covering a new budget broadcast microphone about a month ago, other than the ones that I have been covering, I would have thought you were crazy because I thought I was going to take a long break from all of that. But thankfully, Audio-Technica changed my mind. And we're going to see if this can go in that group of good options for budget broadcast microphones. Welcome back to the Rebel Tech channel. I'm Justin, and in this video, yes, the AT2040. I wasn't expecting this one. I really didn't think Audio-Technica had a budget broadcast microphone in the works, but it makes sense. They're very popular nowadays, and they're probably gonna hit it pretty hard with the amount of people that are interested in it. Audio-Technica has a nice standing with the people that have used their microphones, and they've grown a good reputation amongst new creators as well. Now, before we get into the build of this really nice looking microphone, let's show it off and see how good it does look. And future me will set up the vibe for what we're going for. What kind of vibe we're going for, actually? Keep it kind of low key. No, not low key. No. We want funky, maybe. A little bit of funk, a little bit of sex. No, we want mostly sexy, but a hint of funk. So you want something funky? Kind of like James Brown meets, like, Shakira. I got you, bro. Or something like that. So now that we showed it off and really dove into how this thing looks on stands, how it looks just in general, let's talk about the actual build and really dive deep into what this thing has to offer aesthetically and physically. So holding this microphone, it's really nice. It has a nice sturdy build, as do most Audio-Technica microphones. It does have one thing very similar to the PreSonus PD70. It is a little bit back heavy, which makes sense for microphones like this because their diaphragm is usually not that heavy and the weight usually gets pushed to the back a little bit. You got all the innards and like the magnet and all the... We went into this in my how a dynamic microphone is put together video. So there's a lot of heavy equipment in here and they're usually pushed to the back. But more specifically, has a nice matte look on it. Really looks nice with that light shining right on it. I really love the look of this microphone. If you look around, it has a nice mount here, which, just so you know, this mount comes off. And you could put it on the 20 series microphone shock mount. This one right here. It has a specific model, can't remember it, but it's made for the 20 series models. So the AT2020, AT2035, AT2050, and now the AT2040. So I know that it fits, and it only goes one way. So if it's slipping, you put it in backwards. Speaking of that, let's do a little bit of a noise test before we continue on with the build and see how this thing reacts to handling noise. Of course, it's not going to be a perfect scenario. If you want anything specific, you could hop on my stream and I could throw this thing on and you guys can hear that. But right now, we're just going to do a little bit of test, a little bit of noise test, and then throw this on and compare them. We haven't touched it at all, so let's tap around the stand. This is a regular mic stand. And we're going to tap the quick release here. A little lower down. The mount itself. All right, so we tap on the body. Funny enough, I think it rejects the noise on the body a little bit more than it rejects on the stand itself or a boom arm or whatever it's on, which is very interesting. But to dive a little bit deeper, this microphone has some really cool innards that help reject that noise. I don't recommend using this way if you're using like your hand around it a lot because you don't want to mess up the diaphragm. But maybe if it's a specific tone you're looking for, you got to be very careful if you decide to use it this way. Now, diving a little bit deeper into the construction, you notice that the sides of this in here, in the grill, are very well enforced. And you notice that there's about maybe like a half an inch or so of foam behind the front here. And it's really enforced, and unlike the pod mic, you can actually check it out. The pod mic you can't take apart, at least not easily. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know if I ever will. I'm too scared to. And plus, I think I might be selling it soon, so that's not something you want to do before you sell it. So the other thing that stands out, it's enforced on the diaphragm itself with a little bit of foam. Not as much as here, but it is enforced, so it rejects those plosives, which we'll get into the plosives in the booth. It's just easier to do it that way. Now, the major thing that stands out with this microphone is right here. And I'm not going to touch it while it's on because I'm very nervous about that. But I did test out, there's a bushing, like a rubber bushing around it that's glued in. And it's kind of like a shock absorber, which I think in one of the manuals or something I saw online, they say there's a shock mount thing for the diaphragm. I don't know specifically how they worded it, but basically this is supposed to reject noise or help reject noise in the handling department. So you guys let me know what you think about the tone and on how it rejects the noise with that bushing in there. So the last thing I want to talk about with the build is the nice logo on the side, on both sides. I love a nice logo and just little aesthetic things here. Now, for the rest of the video, just so you know, I'm going to be using the shock mount for this microphone. And we're going to do a little bit of a tap before we continue. So there you go. There's a couple of examples with the shock mount. And like I said, the rest of this video is going to be with the shock mount on. Chances are, if you've seen my videos before, I really don't move the microphone around a lot. So you really won't notice it. But if I ever bump it, then you'll know if it actually works. So next up, we're going to be diving into a section I'd like to call Techy Talk. Of course, talking about the innards, the specs, the tech, and everything that goes into it electronically and all that stuff. And then at the end, we'll do the frequency response curve. So the first thing that stands out with this microphone is paying it off from earlier before in the teaser. It's a hypercardioid polar pattern, meaning that it's got a pickup that's kind of honed in the front, a little bit more than a regular cardioid pickup pattern. And then it's got a tiny bit of pickup on the back. But it's got sweet spots in the corners here, right around, like, depending on what you have, hyper, super, it's like 120 to 135, sometimes 150, so it's right in that range there. You kind of just got to go around it, and maybe you probably notice the exact point right around maybe here or so, and then you're going to start getting more of a pickup behind it as I move to the back. But we'll do a off-axis rejection test throughout this video, one in the studio and one in the untreated room. Now, the other thing that stands out for me is the sensitivity, and it's pretty low, but compared to some other microphones like the Rode Pod mic, the Zoom ZDM1, the Shure SM7B, it's not like that out of the realm of possibilities that a microphone like this would have a quiet sensitivity. So you got to bump up that gain a little bit more. Right now, I got about 50 decibels a gain with no lifters or anything like that, no fed heads or anything like that. So it's 50 decibels of gain on the Zoom F6 right now, so just so you have an idea of what I'm dealing with. Now we're going to move on to the frequency response curve, and if you have any questions about any of the specs or anything like that that I didn't cover, let me know down in the comments, and I will be happy to answer any questions down there. Also on my stream on the weekends. Now let's look into the frequency response curve, and this isn't going to necessarily reflect the tones of the microphone the way you listen to it, but this is just my impressions on how it was tuned on a chart. So in the manual, it says that the frequency response is from 80 hertz to 16 kilohertz. Now, if you look at the chart, as far as the line is concerned, it says it's from 20 to 20, and I felt the same way about the Zoom ZDM1. Their chart and their numbers don't really match, but that's just my opinion, and pretty much everyone's opinion if you look at the chart. So 80 hertz. So if we're going off that 80 hertz, have a microphone that tuned in the low end, sure, there are plenty of times where you would roll off a lot of those below 80 hertz anyway. But 80 is like the breaking point for me, at least for spoken word. Moving on to the midsection, I'm kind of on it because it's kind of flat. It dips down right in the middle there, and it dips from about 200 to about 1K. Slight dip, maybe like 1 or 2 decibels. Maybe it helps with some of the mud, but from my tests that I've done and the things that I've listened to, I don't think, at least on my voice, I don't think it really takes out that muddiness. I feel like it's too mid-forward as far as the tone. Now, of course, if you're looking just at a chart, I'm on it. It's flat-ish, but it's That's how you know how I feel. Now, finally, the highs. We have a nice rise up till like 3.5K, and you got a peak there. Then it starts to dip back down, and another peak at 6, and a slight peak around like 8-ish. So now that we went through the frequency response curve, I'm a solid on it. It doesn't blow me away, and it's nothing too crazy as far as like the way that they tuned it. It's not as generic and it's not as lazy as the ZDM1, but it's certainly nothing to write home about. I really am not too impressed by it. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a noise test, so I'm just going to be quiet for a little bit, and then we're going to do a off-axis rejection. Remember, hypercardioid, so that could be key with some people's setups. And then obviously, booth and untreated room later. So you may have noticed the fan on my computer and maybe some other things around here. I don't hear the dehumidifier, but the microphone might, and I boosted it about 10 decibels in post. So emphasize some of those noises you may hear, but remember, it is boosted more than normal. All right, so throughout this video, I've been talking about like 2-3 inches off the microphone, and now I'm kind of straight on right now. I usually cock it a little bit to brush off some plosives. Next, I'm going to back up a little bit and give a little bit of a distance test. All right, so I'm about a foot away from the AT2040, and this is what it's going to be like at a decent distance. You obviously wouldn't be using this microphone around here, but if someone was talking in the background or something like that, this could be your experience. All right, so now we are on stage left of the AT2040. This is what it's going to be like just at 90 degrees, and now we're going to move to the sweet spot. Now in the sweet spot, roughly, I don't know, it fluctuates from like 120 to 130 degrees. Sometimes it's 150 depending on the microphone. So this is going to be roughly in that area, and I'm moving around to maybe see if there's a special spot that it likes. Now over on stage right, the 90 degree test with the AT2040. And we're going to move into the sweet spot right around 120 degrees right now. And let me know what you think about the rejection. Moving a little bit further to more like 150 degrees. This is going to be the off-axis rejection, a little closer to the back. Lastly, hypercardioid polar pattern at 180 degrees behind it. There's a slight pickup pattern. All right, let's head into the booth and do a little bit of a tone test, a little bit of plosives, and a little bit of nice, quiet surrounding noise. Alrighty, so we are in the booth right now with the AT2040. And this could possibly be an option for a voiceover microphone. I'm still kind of skeptical on the tone, meaning the mid-heavy sound of it. And we spoke about the frequency response and how it was constructed. I just don't understand why they rolled it off so much naturally to the microphone. Usually those types of drastic things are an option, so you can add it on later or whatever. But listening to it in the booth right now, it actually doesn't sound that bad. It's actually pretty tolerable, especially if you're right up on it. You give it a little bit more bass with the proximity effect. And if I was to move back a little bit further to a kind of common area you would have the microphone, it sounds a little more airy. So you want to be a little bit more on this. I think this microphone was intended to have people use it in really close proximity to emphasize a little bit more of that bass and that low end in your voice. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a plosive test. And I noticed a little bit, I have it cocked a little to the side. So maybe if I go a little bit more to the side, I won't get those. They'll brush off a little bit more. See, they're hit again. So let's see how this thing performs with a couple of options. Now, this is natural. All right, here is the microphone without the grill and the hefty insert of wind suppression or wind pop screen stuff. Ugh, God, that's awful. The reason why you have this. But maybe you like the tone better with this. This is with the SE Electronics. And this is if I was to perform with just the grill off. Maybe it sounds a lot more airy, and I'm not a fan of it. But if you like this kind of tone, then maybe this is for you. But you can take this off, but make sure you use a pop filter because it really needs it. And I prefer the SE Electronics one. This is my go-to. All right, so next up, we're going to do the regular grill with the SE Electronics. And I feel like this is a good combination if you like the tone. And there is one more option that I am very interested in doing. All right, so we have the windscreen from the Zoom ZDM1 on the AT2040. And you definitely know that you definitely hear it. You hear that low end a little bit more. And it's definitely suppressing the high ends, which is why I like this on the Zoom ZDM1, because that high end is very boosted. Depending on what you're doing, depending on the source, I say this in every video, you may like the high end, you may like the airy kind of sound, but for me, I like, for these microphones at least, these budget broadcast microphones, that's a tongue twister. Always have trouble with that one. You notice that you want to have that broadcast presence, meaning the like boomy kind of in your face, you feel like you're on the radio kind of sound. So let's just do a quick plosive test with this on here. And remember, if you have these windscreens, take it off just a tiny bit, like maybe like 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch off, and it will kind of give some space as well. Really nice. Now, without sweating my you-know-what's off any further, let's go into the untreated room and see how this thing fares in a less treated room. Not too crazy. I try to use my old bedroom because it's more relatable to certain people and more relatable to a lot of people because, I don't know, it's just what I like to do. Maybe if you want any other examples in like a more echoey room, I could do a series of videos of just that kind of stuff. All right, so we're in the untreated room with the AT2040. We're going to do some testing here to see how it reacts to this room, just to get a lay of the land. We're in a 10 by 10 room, about a 10-foot ceiling, and wood floor with an area rug above it, so that will help with dampening some of the reflections. We have glass for the windows and some flat walls here and there, but there is a lot of stuff in the room, so it shouldn't be too bad with the reflections. So the first thing we're going to do is a noise test, and for this we're going to get the natural tone of the room, and then we're going to do with a fan, with me talking, and without me talking, then the air conditioner, low and high, with and without me talking. So I'm going to stop talking. So you may have heard there's an air conditioner going on downstairs, and if you are a person who's watching all these videos, these comparisons between the AT2040 and some other microphones, I'm recording this all at once because I just don't feel like lugging everything into this room every time I have to do a different video, so I do it all at once. Next up, we're going to do a noise test with the fan. Alright, so this is the mix between the ceiling fan and my voice, and this is what it's going to sound like if you were to run a ceiling fan while you're talking into a microphone, trying to stay cool. But you let me know down in the comments. It does have a hypercardioid polar pattern. I said that weird, cardioid. And this is kind of in the sweet spot of the hypercardioid, so maybe it's not too bad, but you let me know what you think. Alright, so I angled the microphone. Let's move it over a little bit. Angled the microphone so that the sweet spot of the rejection is right in the area where the air conditioner is. See if it makes that much of a difference. So I'm going to turn it. Maybe you notice that it's a little bit better, a little bit different, not necessarily better, but you let me know what you think if when I turned it then. And this is the mix between the air conditioner on low and my voice. We're going to do the next test with the air conditioner on high and see how it is. Okay, so this is the mix between me, my voice, and the air conditioner on high. I said that weird. This has been a lot of recording today and a lot of stuff going on, but this is what it's going to be with a air conditioner going on, and I don't really recommend you doing this because it's not going to be a great performance. It's just going to be a lot of noise, and so I say this a lot. You'll have to sacrifice comfort for getting a good take of audio. Alright, so we're going to do one more test in this video, and it's going to be the off-axis rejection in an untreated room. Well, I say untreated, but there's a lot of stuff in it, so it's kind of unintentionally treated, I guess. So let's back up a bit. Right now I've been talking about 2-3 inches away. Let's back up. Now I'm about foot-ish away from the front of the AT2040 hypercardioid polar pattern, and that's not really going to matter too much unless I move to the side a little bit and stuff like that. So you let me know down in the comments how it is with the backing up and the room noise that comes with that. Alright, 90-degree test, off-axis rejection on the AT2040. Windows on that side, flat wall as well, so let me know if there's any reflections coming in. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the sweet spot, 120 to 150 degrees. So this is the 150 to 120. I did that backwards, I know. I didn't do that on purpose. The sweet spot, as they call it, and to see how the rejection of noise is. Remember, like I said, there's a flat wall over there, so there could be some reflection, but let me know what you think. Now, on stage left of the AT2040, this is your off-axis rejection. This is talking towards a flat wall and also a hallway, so you might have some echo, you might have some reflection, but I haven't really noticed too much of it, especially with the dynamic microphones that I've covered in this room. So let me know if you notice anything specific, and we can discuss it. And if you are in possession of a room similar to this, you will know. Let's go into the sweet spot, 120 to 150 degrees. This is going to be the off-axis rejection in the sweet spot. This is the 180-degree test on the AT2040 in the untreated room. Remember, hypercardioid polar patterns have a little bit of pickup on the back, just like a supercardioid. And there you go. There is the AT2040. An interesting microphone for Audio Technica to put out. And as I said, the mids are a little forward. And it's because you're lacking in a lot of those low tones. You're already losing 80 hertz, which is not crazy, but it is a little much for a lot of microphones. So when you take away some of those lows, the rest are emphasized. Same conversation we had about the ZDM1, except on the opposite side, if you add that pop screen or windscreen, it dampens some of those high ends and makes it more well-rounded and a little more emphasis in that low end. And one more thing, would I recommend it? Unless you have some experience with EQ or some type of audio processing? Not really. But if you want to learn, or if you have experience with it and you're on a budget and you need a good, solid construction, you need good rejection of noise. Surprisingly, there's more rejection of noise here than on the stand, but some microphones are like that. But you saw in the construction of it, it's very well made. And Audio Technica really is one of those companies that you can rely on your microphone lasting for a while. And of course, as I said before, this microphone is for people on a budget that have some experience with EQ. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. Helps this video, helps this channel, and the whole YouTube algorithm thing. We are coming close to 1,000 subscribers. We just passed 800 subs, which is awesome. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And yeah, I think there's going to be certain things planned. I'm not going to promise anything just yet because we're going to get a little closer. Once we get to 900 and further, start like thinking about things to celebrate or whatever it is. But if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button for more videos like this, more microphone reviews. There's a bunch of comparisons coming out, comparing this to the Rode Pod mic, the ZDM1, the PD70, and much more, because I'm very interested in seeing how this one compares to all those other ones, because it's just fun to compare microphones, and especially if they're in the same market and same budget. One more thing, if you're interested in hanging out with me or just having a chat with like a seamless like live thing, I live stream on the weekends. I really want to get back to having it at regular schedule, and I'm trying to do it once during the week. So probably once, maybe twice during the weekend, and maybe once during the week. So just keep an eye out for that. If you throw on notifications, you'll know exactly when I go live. And that's all I got for you today. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. I was too focused on being Morgan Freeman. The raccoon didn't stand a chance for the shuriken. The shuriken was too much for the furry friend.